This is something that doesn't seem like an interview question for a man. It's a way for you to start to get deeper. If you have any feelings that might be off about someone, take a listen. The number one question you can ask a man at any time to avoid the wrong man and avoid heartbreak. And if you don't know who I am to be talking about, the number one question to ask any man to avoid heartbreak, I'm Coach Paula Grooms, a dating and relationship coach for women, licensed social worker, and author of the book, Why Won't He Commit? How a Man Decides to Make You the One. I coach you to find a Mr. Right, get an ex back, or grow an existing relationship with a man you truly desire, so you create the relationship of your dreams and level up to the complete commitment you totally deserve. That's why you're here, I'm hoping. And if you are here on YouTube, please say hello and comment. Otherwise, I don't see you and I don't know you're here. And I would love to know you're here. So if you would do that, that would mean a lot to me, because I want to keep providing these a place where you can come for Q&A. And if you haven't seen lives that I have done whereby I actually speak to someone, they are here, you hear their voice and we have a conversation so I can ask my questions, because it's the best way I can give value to you, and you can talk to me live. Most women choose to use an anonymous name for themselves and the guy or guys they will be discussing, and you can do that by becoming a member of the 80/20 Wonder Club. That is in the description below. Then when you become a member, you can just join monthly. You can cancel at any time. You can be on lives actually talking to me live rather than just commenting during Q&A. There's a little bit of delay, so it's easier for me to give real coaching when I get to ask the questions I need in real time. I get to hear your voice. I get to know you. I get to know your situation, and I can give you some real coaching. So please put a comment in the chat, say hello so I know you're here. This is going to be a good one for you. If you are involved with someone and you have questions about him and his, maybe his stability, maybe his narcissism. I know there's a lot out there about this. You know, there's so much bandied about narcissism. And I say to many of the women I'm coaching whom have said to me, you know, I believe he's highly narcissistic, someone they are with, their partner. You know, we can talk about that always on a scale of being a low on the level of traits of narcissism, in the middle, and high in the traits. And then, of course, there is narcissistic personality disorder. I give a very brief, what I think is the easiest way to understand narcissism, which is a normal and natural trait that all of us have to one degree or another. And I talk about it like as on a line. And if you see my two fingers here, if you're watching, over on, let's put this side of the scale, going over, I'm looking at myself in a strange way, but it's a line from left to right. Think of a line left to right. Even draw it, and you can really conceptualize where your man falls on the trait level of narcissism if you're questioning it. Because it doesn't mean if he has a certain level of narcissism that it's not going to work for you or that you cannot be in a relationship with him. I dare say that if every woman said, I can't be in a relationship with anybody who has any narcissistic traits, there would barely be a woman alive who would be with any man. In other words, there is a normal level of narcissism, and we all fluctuate within a normal band. So, for example, on this line from left to right, you want to think all the way on the left side of the scale would be someone which barely exists, and it only exists in of extremely rare cases of, say, catatonia. It would be where there's absolutely no sense of self, and there's a catatonia whereby someone they're awake and they're aware, but you can take their limbs and put their limbs in a certain position and they'll just stay there. It's that level of catatonia we're talking about. Way over here on the left side of the scale. And as I said, extremely rare. And as we move up the scale, there is more of a sense of self, ego, etc. And most of us fall within a range of normalcy of what we call narcissistic traits. And some days we feel really good about ourselves. In some things, we might be more narcissistic than other things in life, etc. But we bandy about this term of narcissism and we make it all negative. And it is not. It is highly useful. For example, as we move farther to the right of the scale, and if you're watching me, I'm going to my right, before we get to the end of the scale, we have a higher level of narcissism. And men can tend to be more narcissistic than women, but certainly not always. But here are the folks that think very highly of themselves, and they have, and here's the key, they have the requisite experience, the requisite maybe education, achievement concurrent with that level of narcissism. So for example, people who tend to be high on the scale of narcissism are, say, surgeons. Well, certainly, again, we're speaking on average here. I want you to think about it. Surgeons, high level of achievement, gone through enormous challenges of medical school, doing their residency and their surgical residency, and they have done a lot. And they cut into people to fix them. So someone put it this way, and I think it's so on track. You want your surgeon to be very high on a level of narcissism. You want him or her to think, I'm going to cut into you and fix you. I am that good. Maybe your MD can have a great bedside manner. You don't necessarily want your surgeon to. You want him to be high up here. We look at other people who tend to be high on the level of narcissism. Politicians, some celebrities, very charismatic because they have a high level of confidence, but it is earned. When we go up here on the scale, which is between these folks that I just talked about and the very end of the scale, this high level of narcissism can be what is known as narcissistic personality disorder. And this tends to be whereby there is not a concurrent level of achievement, education, wherewithal. They have generally not done anything in their life that we would connote to their level of narcissism and bravado about themselves. These folks tend to not hold jobs, get fired from everything, have terrible interpersonal relationships. Now, I'm not saying that there can't be some overlap where I singled out surgeons. There are plenty of professions that it can be. I singled that out just to make a point, and that you want your surgeon to be narcissistic in a way. You want him or her to think that they're God's gift to the world of surgery because they're going to do it right and they know best. You want that. We know we're dealing with someone with NPD, whereby there is always a feeling of being confused, confabulated, put down, things don't make sense. When you're in any kind of interpersonal discussion, I'm going to get to that. I'm going to give you a snippet of a discussion with Chase Hughes. And Chase is a high-level behavioral specialist who has helped the military and interrogation for people for psychopathy and or high-level narcissistic traits, sociopathology, etc. And it's really fascinating because we can do this with a man with whom we might be highly attracted because the narcissists up here on the scale can be highly charismatic and we can fall for it. Again, it doesn't make everyone who has highly narcissistic traits to be impossible to live with. The narcissistic personality disorder is whereby the person does not have empathy and understanding of someone else's traits. This is not at all the case with people who are just highly narcissistic. It can. It's not an exact science, but make no mistake, and certainly it's my belief, that narcissistic personality disorder, which is its own thing, like I said, those people tend not to keep a job, have terrible interpersonal relationships with family members and others. They are generally in turmoil often. And if you've ever been in a relationship with someone who has the disorder or who is bordering on it, might be one of those who can hold a job and maybe has a very high level job and is impossible. You hear that a lot, just impossible to deal with because it's their way or the highway. They are right. Everyone else is devalued, high level of devaluing others who do not agree. And this is with high-level narcissists at times, but not always. But when you get into the disorder, it's almost always, and there's a period for people who have the real disorder, it is black and white of valuing in a huge way to start. But the minute something doesn't go their way, the person is totally devalued. You may have been a recipient of that in a relationship, and that's how you know. What I love about this little snippet of discussion I'm going to give you from Chase Hughes tells you what you can ask someone, and you can even do this on a first meeting, first date, but you can also do it when you're already in a relationship and maybe you're questioning. It's a way for you to get information that's really going to help you make a determination. And that's what I love about it. So this is a discussion between Patrick Bet-David and Chase Hughes, whereby he's asking someone about narcissism. And make no mistake, he's talking about the more NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, which can have components of sociopathology within it. There's not necessarily a clear-cut line, but this is something that doesn't seem like an interview question for a man. It's a way for you to start to get deeper. If you have any feelings that might be off about someone, take a listen.
So I get hired by companies a lot to do kind of employee screenings and all this kind of stuff. And there's a company out there, they make medical instruments.
Employee screening?
Yeah, for C-suite. They say we want to screen out these guys that have extremely high narcissism, sociopathy, psychopathy. So I developed this 5-page checklist that they could kind of have somebody take this assessment that would trick someone into revealing some of those traits. This took me months. And then I gave it to them and they're like, no. We mean just what's one question we can ask? We want instant, immediate results. Like there's some kind of Harry Potter wizard spell that they can do that's going to reveal this person. Mm-hmm. So it took me a while, but we came up with the question. And the question is, what's the biggest thing you learned about yourself in that stressful time, that experience, that past relationship? Fill in the blank. And I mean, this would work on a speed date. What are the biggest thing you learned about yourself?
Is it specific to a difficult time, or what's the most important thing you learn about yourself, period?
Specific to a difficult time.
Okay, got it.
Or a stressful time. So for some people, they're going to say, well, I learned that I have a tendency to overdo things, or I lost my temper, or I did something wrong, you'll get genuine lessons from most people. And when you have, and this is not some definitive test. So anybody listening, this is not some crazy perfect test. But with the other people, you're a lot more likely to hear things like, I learned that I shouldn't trust companies right away. I should be a little more skeptical about what I'm getting myself into. I learned that I shouldn't make business deals unless I fully know somebody's background, because people aren't very trustworthy. So you're going to hear all kinds of blame shifting, even in the relationship question. I learned that I shouldn't open myself up to a partner right away because they're going to cheat on me. They're going to lie to me. So it's always somebody else's fault. And that's to this day, that's the first thing that they ask in interviews.
You see, it is the blame shifting, and that's subtle, very, very subtle. This is important for you to know, that you have to listen for the blame shifting. Very, very subtle, like I said. If he shifts blame a lot, that's really important. And you see, like Chase said, you could do this on a speed date. Trying, what's the most stressful situation you ever had at work. We might, may not, or anything like he's telling you, and here's something I also want you to take away. There was a woman who did, her main area of study was sociopaths, and some of them were psychopaths, but mostly sociopaths. And there is statistically 1 out of every 25 people are known to be what is called sociopathic. And sociopathic simply means they lack a conscience like you and I have. They don't tend to feel guilt. It used to be believed it was 1 out of 100 people. Now it's believed to be 1 out of 25 people are what we could classify as sociopathic. Well, that's really high, but it accounts for why there is so much trouble in the world. Because think of what you could do if you had no conscience, if you didn't feel guilt. And we want to make sure from the get-go that we're dealing with someone who can. You don't want to get caught up with a man who is charming and just charming. And you know, I always tell you here, you're not looking for a man with great dating skills. You're looking for a man with great relationship skills. Many men who have great dating skills can be highly narcissistic, even sociopathic. They know what to do and how to act. Anyone who studies socio and psychopathology, they know that a psychopath studies other people to know the right emotions to go with a set of circumstances. And then they will act out those emotions because they know they should. But we want it to come from within. We want to know that a man has a conscience, feels empathy, concern. Remember, we did, or one of the last lives, on the 3 main traits you want your man to have. Conscientiousness, which embodies so much about being loyal, responsible, caring, concerned. Now, it doesn't necessarily encompass empathy, but it's more likely to if he's conscientious. Openness, flexibility. So, in terms of this question that you can ask, you will get a sense if he's shifting blame. He didn't learn anything. Well, that's telling. I learned that I can't trust others. I learned that somebody with money will screw me over. I learned that you women just all want XYZ. I learned that I have to be careful that women are after my money. Whatever. But you hear in those statements, no, there's not real insight as to, I realized that I tended to pick women who I was attracted to for the wrong reasons. Things like that. Well, that's a totally different thing. Insight into. I realized what I did that contributed to, etc. You can always follow up with things like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. How did you feel? To get him to say more. What I like about it is that it's a veiled question. It's not something that is so overt that he will feel is more like an interview question. And if he balks at it, if you say, well, what did you learn about yourself from that difficult time? And you can prime it with, wow, that sounds really difficult. What was that like for you? Well, I find that the most difficult or challenging times in life, I learned a lot that carried me through other times. What did you learn from it? You see, you're softening a little bit for a date or even somebody you're seeing now. But I really like this because it's more conversational and has a little more meat to it. So I wanted to bring that to you. Like you said, even speed dating or an initial meeting with somebody, or at any time you want to dive a little deeper and get a little more information. So take any questions you have. And again, I ask, please hit that subscribe button. I hope this was helpful. I trust that it was, because there's so much out there about narcissism. And I want you to understand that it is on a spectrum, so to speak. And think about it on this line, which, again, left to right, over here, completely catatonic, all the way over to this slide of narcissistic personality disorder. If we bring the line together and make a circle, you can see that when it comes together, when that line meets, if you made it a circle, it means that the person who is so high up on the scale of NPD has so little, so little self-worth, self-value, self-esteem, and that's what creates the narcissistic personality disordered person. How can you get a narcissist to see your way if you're in a relationship with a successful male? Well, first of all, you may be saying a successful male, he is a narcissist. Now, again, I think unless someone truly has the disorder, we don't want to necessarily classify them as a narcissist. They might have narcissistic traits, and if you believe your man is high on the level of narcissism, or do you believe that he might be narcissistic personality disordered? Very different. So if he has concurrent things in his life, so he feels like he's earned some of it, arrogant, okay? Yep, comes with the territory sometimes. Difficult. You're going to have to learn high-level sexy mother for him to want to please you because it's interesting, fun, and it's not challenging him. So an example, you are married and you want him to see something by way of what you're going to spend the money on for the children. So you want daughter to have ballet lessons, and he thinks that's a waste of money because she should be doing something that she'll be able to make money at and go to school for, and et cetera, et cetera. And so he thinks it's a waste of money for the ballet lessons. So you use sexy mother rather than coming at him from a rational standpoint, which will be seen as a challenge to maybe what he feels is his better grasp of things than you do, certainly financially, if he's successful and he's making more money, et cetera, it comes with a whole host of things. So it's coming at him from the feminine. And it's like, honey, if she does ballet, she's going to feel so great about herself. And just like, how it might attract you that I'm feminine and my movements are fluid, and we want her to do really well in life. And this will just help her a little bit. It would make me so happy, and she would be so happy with these lessons. Please think about it. I know you want to make us happy. Now that may make you feel like, ugh, but it's the lilt in your voice. It's the pleasing you. Make us so happy. I know she's going to love you for it. And then if that doesn't work as well, then there's some negotiating, which is, how about just for this year of school and see if she likes it. And you make the assessment of whether or not it's giving her that grace we'd love her to have. You see, something like that. It's coming at it from the feminine, not the rational reason you want it. Because head to head, he's going to feel challenged like he does at work. And it's not about pleasing you. It's more relational, soft, kittenish. You hear the way I used my voice. Because men are extremely attuned to the voice, pitch, tone, intensity of the woman because they were reared by women telling them what to do as boys. So we have to add in the sexy. Generally speaking, people who fall in high-level narcissism are highly successful. We can say, no matter what you think of him, Donald Trump, narcissistic, meaning he believes in his abilities. I'm great. I'm successful. I do what I say what I'm going to do. I'm the greatest. I can be the greatest president of all time. Yeah, he's up there in that group. Does that mean there's evil intent and all the stuff that's bandied about? No, he's what we would call typically a lovable narcissist. Surgeons, pilots, we want those people to believe in who they are, believe in what they're going to do, handle things correctly. It's an extremely useful trait, and it is like Darwinian. The men who had this trait in our earliest times, where they were going to go hunt a 2-ton boar with a little stone that they whittled to a point to make an arrow and put it on a stick, and they were going to run after something that could kill them, and they said, no, I'm going to kill it. because I can, because I'm so good at what I do. You see, that's bravado, somewhat narcissistic. But the men who did not have those traits, who said, no, I can't do that, I can't make that happen, their genes died off. If you like men who feel that way about themselves, carry themselves in that way, whereby they think highly of themselves, as long as they have other good traits, they can be narcissistic. They're not an NPD. It's the NPD, narcissistic personality disordered people, who are truly a problem. It's up to you whether you can deal with a man with those traits. We think because it's so in our face, like Donald Trump. Could everyone be Melania? Do you think she gets a lot of time, cuddles, assuaging? No, I think it was Donald Trump Jr. who said he'd been on Air Force One with his dad for, I think he'd been up for 48 hours straight, maybe longer. Maybe this was during the campaign. And he got a call at 5 a.m. And Donald Trump said to his son, I'm at the office. Where are you? It was 5 a.m. And he had been up, he had gotten 2 hours of sleep. But it's like, yeah, I expect you to be like me. But we look at his family. They all love him, very close family. So there's something there. I once heard as well that no matter what's happening in the world, when he was president before, whenever a child called him, he answered. He said, no matter what I'm doing, my children call me, I answer. So he's responsible to them. Conscientiousness. Doesn't mean he's not narcissistic, but is he conscientious? Yes. We could dare say there's probably not a high level of flexibility, but it's served him and he's successful. So you have to decide for yourself and then use Sexy Mother to help you get more of what you need and want. So if you haven't, please hit the subscribe button and you'll get notifications whenever I do a video or when a live is coming up. And hit the red alert bell too, so you'll know. But also, share this with someone who might want to become a subscriber, because it helps me to stay here and stay coaching and continue to help you, especially here on YouTube. So thank you again. Put your questions in the comments. Hit the like for me, because that also helps the algorithms. But when you put your comment in, I'll see it. I try to answer anything that is even remotely related to what we talk about here. And thank you. I will see you in the next video.